shitty pay, feeling guilty for the cold food you ate, while Mr. Prime Minister boards a private plane, paid off in taxes and full of cocaine. Forgo the funeral, do away with the rites, just leave my body under the Capitol porch light. Leave out the speeches, do not make a fuss, but don't die thinking that they think about us. Oh, don't die thinking that they think about us.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is April 7th, 2024. Sunday, April 7th, 2024. And that just, wow, I really liked it. And I thought, that's cool. So we started the show with that one. Sorry, sabotage will return tomorrow. Trudeau wants to build modular homes. And 10 years ago, we were making family homes, admittedly condos, a lot of condos, but they were family homes intended to build or to house families. And now we're not doing that. Instead, we're building stackable modular homes. And Trudeau's touting this as some kind of win. And I think it underlines the decline in our standard of living. People don't like it. And Justin Trudeau's saying any opposition to his crackpot plan is alt-right or somehow not patriotic, although Justin Trudeau hates everything patriotic. How are modular homes going to be the solution? It's offensive, and I think we should go back to actually building homes that people want, and we should actually go back to serving the population that lives here and not a foreign population that is invading our country. I think that we need to really get back to that, and we need to hold the leaders who have gotten us into this mess accountable for the damage they've done, from lockdowns to the invasion that they've enabled and paid for with our taxes and more. And the NGOs they've funded to protest anybody who stood up to it, the laws they changed to silence anybody online and beyond, all of it, they need to be held accountable. Otherwise, it's going to happen again. So we need to fix this problem. And it's just starting with modular homes, right? This is not the solution that they're selling it as. That's where we're going to start today. Rate cuts. They keep saying, we're going to cut the rates. The rate cuts are coming, right? The end of 2023, Q2 2024. Actually not anymore. So there's news today that rate cuts are delayed because the economy is doing too well and blah, 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 blah. But that's immigration, right? Cut the immigration and the economy tanks big time, like to the point where they're going to need to do rate cuts because the economy is going to tank. Tents are now allowed in public spaces and no one is going to challenge it at all. The Supreme Court, or at least in Ontario, Guelph was angry about the tent cities and the safety, right? The issues around safety. And so that went to City Hall, and City Hall decided to send it to the staff, and the staff waited until there was a decision on a Kingston appeal to this whole thing, something similar, right? A similar bylaw. And so the staff have come back and recommended that Guelph not go ahead with the bylaw because it'll be challenged in court and we'll lose based on this precedent already. So all of that's interesting to me. I think people are frustrated because our leadership doesn't work for us. They work for a captured political class that is, well, a ideologically captured group of people who see themselves as above us, that I call the political class at this point. NATO conscription? Draft men and women? Yep, that's what they're talking about. So, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, they, them, all of you, you could be drafted. Well, I don't know. Can the they, them be drafted? Because they don't fit into ladies and gentlemen and men and women, right? Interesting use of language there. Interesting way to keep people out of harm's way, right? I've already got an injury. Yep, you sure do. 100-year mortgages to get affordability. That's another thing that they're floating. And I think that announcement is on the horizon. Edison Trucks makes big rigs electric. Okay. And they make existing big rigs electric, and they've done it all out of pocket. They haven't got any grants, and they're being given the runaround by the government of Canada and the grant writers who also work for the government of Canada. And so that's pretty wild stuff. So we've got a whole story there. I've got the link in the description, and I'm going to be off for a couple of weeks at the end of April. I have a thing. I have to go. I have to travel somewhere. And so I don't know how feasible it is to bring my show. I'm going to bring my computer. I'm going to try, but there's going to be at least 6 days in in 2 weeks, April 25th to May 6th or so, that I'm going to be out and about, not able to do my show regularly. So heads up, everyone. Sorry. I'll do my best. I'll probably be doing shows in that period of time, but it won't be regular. And there's, like I said, like I'm traveling. So there's going to be a couple of days where it's probably not likely to happen. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll do my best because I like to do my show. And if I can reasonably do my show, the only problem that I'm concerned with is not necessarily my time, because I could do a little truncated show. I could do a little one. It's the upload. So I just don't know how that's going to work out. So we're going to figure it out, but we'll see. We'll see. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with modular homes. Kirk says Canada went from a proud country where if you worked hard, you could get yourself a house with a yard for your family to grow in, to begin a country that's proud to shove people into prefab ship boxes. And we have government that boasts about it as if it's some kind of successful achievement. So at one point in time, we had, a yard, a white picket fence, a couple of cars, post-secondary education. Or, you don't need post-secondary education. You can go become something that doesn't require that, and you can still be successful in Canada, right? I've known lots of people who didn't go to university or college, and they're still very successful. I know people who opened businesses. I know people who went into factories and made tons of money and retired early. So, there's all sorts of paths, or there were all sorts of paths in Canada. And now here's your prefab home. Don't forget to pay your Netflix subscription and cancel Disney Plus, right? Here's Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau warning here, everyone. 48 seconds. This is a very Pierre Poilievre walking style video. Now, this wasn't done a lot in Canadian politics until Poilievre started doing it at the end of COVID there through airports and things like that. And here's Trudeau kind of mimicking that whole scene. So here we go.
If I asked you how they build a house, what would you say? You'd probably point out they start by digging a big hole and filling it with bricks and mortar. You'd probably point out that it takes a long time. What if there was a more innovative way of getting housing built? I'm here at a modular housing factory where they're building the homes we need in a matter of months. Doing it with 3D printing and automation, also by using standardized blueprints that other builders can use too. They're literally mass producing the housing we need. That's the kind of innovation we need to solve the housing crisis we're in. These are the investments we're making in technology to scale it up and make it happen.
It's all about the photo op and selling something that is fantasy. It's not actually working. It's not actually going to solve the problem, because in order to actually solve the problem, like in Canada, we build about 250,000 homes a year, and we have imported 1.2 million people for the last 3 years. We're in a deficit of homes, so we have a backlog of homes we need to build quickly, or we need to remove the people who are overloading the supply or the demand side of the supply and demand equation. And probably easier to do the removal of the people, or stop the influx anyway, turn off the infusion, turn off the hose, and then catch up, right? As we build homes, 250,000 at a time, right? But no, Trudeau wants to mass produce them quickly using, and there's more to this modular home thing. There's more to this company than meets the eye. But first, I wanted to show you guys this picture, because Justin Trudeau was given a hammer and a photo op, and this picture is already being heavily memed. Like, it's pretty funny already. Sassglass says, "If I had a hammer, Justin, you're the biggest tool in this photo. Even I know how to hold a hammer, and I'm a girl." And so Justin Trudeau is holding the hammer with the forks out, right? And the part, like the part of the hammer that you would use to demolish things. That's what Justin Trudeau is holding as the business end at this point in time. And that's just strange. And so here's one of the memes that I thought: the moment you regret taking double time to do a photo op with an idiot. So it zooms in on his face, and it's just perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's not how you hold. Never mind, Justin. Yeah, that's great. Great job, Justin. Okay. Calgary Recall says people, it's not modular homes as in single family like the affordable displaced Blackfoot and Mid-Park homes. It's stack and pack high-rise pics from the website of the company the Liberals toured today. Missing middle row house is a ruse. So yeah, they want to stack these modular homes high as you want, high as you can go. And he says, "Oh, look who we have here on Dextra's board." So Dextra is the company of the modular homes, right? And to be fair, I would consider, if the R value of the walls was sufficient, I would consider a modular home as like one of the buildings on a property to be like a base or something like that. A base, like I worked on a campus that had multiple buildings. There were barracks, like 4 or 5 barracks, 3 barracks, and then a couple of staff barracks and whatever. And there was headquarters, which was, they were all kind of like portables. So I wouldn't mind having a building like that, but I wouldn't live in it necessarily. It would just be like a, mixed use building type deal. I wouldn't want it as a home, but I wouldn't mind having it as like a quick option. If it was like $10,000 and it was going to go up super quick, sure. Modular building me up, right? Give me a portable, whatever it is. I would be fine with that. But again, not necessarily for housing people. Is it better than a tent? Sure. Is that an option we should be exploring? Absolutely not. Neither. No, right? Mass building modular homes that stack and pack, and making sure that David Johnston, the guy who absolved you of any wrongdoing in the China thing, on the board? I don't know. It kind of looks like, smoke. Is there a fire over there? No, it's just a lot of smoke. Weird, right? Weird. So something to note, right? And the idea that these modular homes would be something that you can do what I'm describing with, that's not their intention. Their intention is to stack them, right? To make as many as possible, to mass produce them. I've even heard that the modular homes want the government to pre-buy a big swath of them so they can ramp up faster. And Justin Trudeau is more than happy to spend your tax dollars to sell you the solution to the problem that they themselves created, which is stack and pack modular homes, which may be better than a tent, but shouldn't be considered as the solution to this problem. Here's what's happening in Guelph, and I think this is like a dipstick, right? Like this is what's happening around Ontario too. Guelph is citing Kingston. We can't solve this problem. This is happening in Kingston. So people will get upset because legal precedent for tent cities is being set, and we can't rock that boat, right? Are you kidding me? Holy smoke. Guelph Today reports planned public space use bylaw no longer moving forward. Staff will be taking no further action at this time on the proposed Guelph public space use bylaw, says staff in the wake of City of Kingston withdrawing its appeal. The City of Guelph no longer plans to pursue a bylaw regulating the use of public space in the city. The announcement comes in a city report to council announcing that staff would no longer be coming to council with an update on a proposed bylaw that includes limiting where encampments can take place. Given the withdrawal of the appeal of the Kingston decision related to the public space use, staff will be taking no further action at this time on the proposed Guelph public space use bylaw. In February, after hearing from numerous delegates during an hours-long special council meeting, council voted 10-3 to defer the bylaw until after an appeal court ruling was released and analyzed regarding a challenge of a similar bylaw in Kingston that was ruled unconstitutional through a Superior Court of Justice ruling. So our courts don't work for us. They work for the invasion that is building tent cities in our cities to destabilize and displace us. But the appeal of that bylaw has now been withdrawn by Kingston. That would leave any bylaw Guelph created also likely to be struck down by the Superior Court of Justice. Notwithstanding clause? Doug Ford, hello, I'd be picking up the phone. Given the withdrawal, I don't want tent cities. We don't want slums. We don't want to live in slums. That's it, period. Done. Right? Like this is a safety issue. I'll read you some of the comments as well. Given the withdrawal of the appeal of the Kingston decision related to the public space use, staff will be taking no further action at this time on the proposed Guelph public space use bylaw, states the staff report prepared by the General Manager of Operations, Doug Godfrey. In consultation with our city legal counsel, staff feel that bringing back a public space use bylaw would not be productive at this time, as in the absence of the Kingston appeal being heard, we have no new information to help guide city council in their decision-making process. In the absence of that information, I think that I would go ahead with passing the bylaw and see what happens next, right? Like bylaws in place, no encampments, and we'll see what happens next. So staff were to come back to council with recommendations on the bylaw, taking into consideration the homelessness situation as well as the needs of the business community and the general population, and ultimately finding the balance between the needs of all residents by caring for our community spaces and places. A planned public feedback effort on the bylaw has also been shelved. No more public feedback for you. Please note, however, staff are developing a plan to conduct public consultation with those with lived and living experiences directed by the mayor related to temporary structural encampments. Oh, they can have a feedback, a way to give feedback, but the citizens who are paying for it all can't. Great. Here's this person, and they say, this is a comment on this article. If a tent with a propane heater catches fire in a public space and members of the public are harmed, are those injured persons allowed to sue the Supreme Court for striking down public protection legislation, or is the city on the hook for damages against those persons? What if there's an innocent or incorrectly discarded needle and a child finds it and is injured by it? Who pays for the medical costs, especially if this results in long-term suffering for the child? Can we get a restriction on the flammable fuel being used in public space, or are we just dropping the whole thing? We're dropping the whole thing. Oh yeah, this is an invasion, and this is what communists do. And here's how it can get bad. And governments are censoring this by censoring the tech platforms. Our government is trying to enact C-63, and that's going to censor the internet and probably remove people like me, and up to and including me, despite me not wanting to be removed, right? I'll do this show. I like doing this show. This is one of my favorite hobbies, okay? But I am at risk because the government is trying to shut down anybody who doesn't agree with their stack 'em and pack 'em solution to everything, right? The only solution to unemployment is obviously increase immigration and raise taxes, right? Got any other problems? I've got the solution right here. It's either increase immigration or raise taxes. That's it, right? Groceries too expensive? Raise taxes. No problem. Done. It works for everything. Here's what's actually happening. Here's the next step of the tent encampments, I think, okay? Epstein's sheet says, this woman claims her videos are being pulled down by big tech who want to keep gang activity by illegal invaders a secret. Karis Marie lives in Chicago and was reporting on illegals forming gangs. They're on every street corner all through the hood. They're protected class. They're allowed to commit crimes and they get out on bail. And so they're protected. So they're allowed to form gangs and commit criminal activity, right? Engage in criminal activity and get away with it, right? And this woman being censored for pointing it out. Here we go. Stop noticing.
Oh, I told y'all about what was going on in Chicago and they took my video down. Why don't they want me talking about what's happening in the hoods across the country right now? They took my video down because I told you that they are forming gangs from these other countries across the hood in the US right now. They took my video down because I said my friends are calling me and telling me that something is going on and that they are on every street corner all through the hood. And on that video, people in New York, in Colorado, in Phoenix are all saying that the exact same thing is happening. Why don't they want us to talk about that? We better wake up and we better start talking to each other because it looks like they are using us and they are going to use this open border issue as a way for us all to go against one another. The video hasn't even been up a whole hour. It had almost 25,000 views and they know that something stinks and we're hip to the shit. So
that's interesting, right? And how I've talked before about Order 66 and just waiting for the right opportune time or the time where it's totally undeniable and something else has to change, right? And the timing is suspicious, right? Lots of people talking about, and I'll show you a clip of people talking about getting to the 2024 election in the United States. A lot of people think that there's going to be something that happens, right, to derail that martial law, whatever it is. So it's not safe to have an election. It's not safe to make these choices because, we're being bombarded with misinformation and disinformation and so on and so forth. That's the kind of argument they're trying to make. And it's just incredible because, well, we're going to go through how these communist tactics are being used in the modern era to usher in a very old idea, communism, right? And it's very, very similar. All the tactics are very similar to things that have happened before. Steven says, Canada is getting new mortgage news. Remember, kids, extending amortizations, buying bonds or any other debt inflation strategy is designed to raise home prices. But it used to be that people would get bad deals on used cars, okay? And the used car salesman got a reputation for pressuring people and putting people into a box. And there's actually, it's a box strategy to get people to the magic number they need. And instead of talking about the price of the car, they started talking about the monthly payments, right? And this is preying upon people who are low information, who don't understand what agreement they're actually making, because the car is going to cost a lot more the longer it's part of a loan, right? You're paying for that amortization, and the interest payments add up over time, right? And so you may pay a lower monthly fee, but over the length of the loan, you're going to pay $38,000 for a $20,000 car, and that's bad, right? You don't want to spend that kind of money because that's bad for you, right? But it's predatory, and people get a bad reputation for doing it. And now they're doing it for houses, okay? That's what they're trying to do for houses. They're trying to lock people into a situation where, don't worry, you can buy a house. You just have to give us your children and their children too. It's wild. Here's what happened in Japan, okay? So Japan had its own version of these loans, including the so-called 3-generation loan, a 90 or even 100-year mortgage. That sounds like a great idea. What are the monthly costs again? What's the price monthly? Oh yeah, sign me up for that. That sounds great. 100-year mortgage that permitted buyers to spread payments out over their lifetimes and those of their children and their grandchildren. A mortgage is a death note, right? Like a death debt, right? Mortgage, right? So, yay, I want your children and your grandchildren, and you can have this house. It seems like a bad deal. I would rather everybody's given free land, and like you can buy some wood and maybe buy a prefab home for a little while as you know, home base building. When property prices dropped in Japan, this is what happened afterwards, okay? Homeowners found themselves saddled with loans far larger than the value of their real estate. Many fell into bankruptcy, especially those who lost their jobs or took pay cuts, as declining property prices helped to incite a broader recession. From 1994 to 2003, the number of personal bankruptcies rose sixfold to a record of 242,357, according to Japanese Supreme Court, which tracks the data. Even many of those who avoided financial collapse found themselves marooned in homes that they never intended as lifelong residents. For many Japanese homebuyers in the 1980s, land prices had risen so high that the only places they could afford were far from central Tokyo. Many went deep into debt to buy tiny or shoddily built homes that were 2 hours away from their offices. So, and then Stephen says, drumming up business from aid. So you get yourself into a financial calamity, right? Kind of government driven. Like, oh, when they say, don't worry, the interest rates aren't going to go up, buy. And then you do. And then the interest rates go up by the most in 40 years. So yeah, kind of like that. Exactly kind of like that. It's communist tactics, and they're trying to bankrupt the country, and they're trying to harm people. And socialized medicine has only so many units. So if you have 10 units and 12 people, 2 people need to be right? And, one of them looks real sad, so let's kill them. And let's slowly poison another one of them with, I don't know, take your pick, right? And so it seems like that's the situation. And the reality of Canadian healthcare at this point in time as well is that we don't actually have 10 units of healthcare. We say that we have 10 units of healthcare, but a lot of that is hallway healthcare, and there's a lot to be desired about Canadian healthcare, and there has been for a lot of years. And we haven't fixed those problems because, well, we just keep flooding the country with people. So that's problematic, right? So let's talk about communism. Dr. Lin says Brazil's on the edge. This is Michael Schellenberger. So Michael Schellenberger's got a video at the bottom here. And he says, should I just play this? I'll just play this.
Dear Michael
Okay, hold on. It's 6 minutes long, so I'll just give you the Cole's notes. He says, this is Michael Schellenberger. I'm reporting to you live from Brazil, where a dramatic series of events is underway. At 6:52 p.m. São Paulo time, X, formerly known as Twitter, announced that the Brazilian court had forced it to block certain popular accounts in Brazil. Less than an hour later, X owner Elon Musk announced that X would defy the court order and lift all restrictions. As a result, Musk said, we would likely lose all revenue in Brazil and we'll have to close our office there, but principles are more important than profit. I'll show you that in a minute. at any time, the federal Supreme Court may block access to Twitter for the Brazilian people. It's no exaggeration to say that Brazil is on the brink of dictatorship in the hands of a totalitarian minister of the federal Supreme Court called Alexandre de Moraes. President Lula da Silva is participating in this push towards totalitarianism. Since taking office, Lula has greatly increased government funding of major media outlets, most of which encourage increased censorship. What Lula and de Moraes are doing is a scandalous violation of the Constitution of Brazil and the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. At this moment, Brazil is not yet consolidated dictatorship. You still have elections and other means of confronting authoritarianism that no longer exist in more advanced tyrannies. But the federal Supreme Court and the Superior Electoral Court interfere in elections through censorship, same as here. 3 days ago, I published the Twitter archives for Brazil. They show that Morales has violated the Brazilian constitution. Morales illegally demanded that Twitter reveal private information about Twitter users whose hashtags he considered inappropriate. He demanded access to Twitter's internal data, violating the platform's policy. He censored on his own initiative and without any respect for due process posts on Twitter by parliamentarians from the Brazilian Congress, and Morales tried to turn Twitter's content moderation policies into weapons against supporters of then-President Bolsonaro. I say this as an independent and non-partisan journalist. I'm not a fan of either Bolsonaro or Trump. My political views are moderate, but I know censorship when I see it. The Twitter archives also reveal that Google, Facebook, Uber, WhatsApp, and Instagram betrayed the people of Brazil. If such evidence is proven, these executives of these companies behaved like cowards. They provided the Brazilian government with personal registration data and telephone numbers without a court order and therefore violated the law. When Twitter refused to provide Brazilian authorities with private user information, including direct messages, the government attempted to sue Twitter's top Brazilian lawyer. When I lived in Brazil in '92, I was very left-wing. At the time, Lula and the PT's slogan were "without fear of being happy." Right, communists always want you to be happy, right? You'll own nothing, but you'll be happy because you won't be allowed to be sad. Because if you're sad, they'll kill you with MAID, right? It seems sad, that one. Elon Musk says, this aggressive censorship appears to violate the law and the will of the people of Brazil. And Michael Schellenberger is sharing the Twitter files. Link is in the description again if you're interested in that. Aaron is sharing Elon Musk's tweet. We are lifting all restrictions post. It's not really a tweet anymore, is it? This judge has applied massive fines, threatened to arrest our employees, and cut off access to X in Brazil. As a result, we will probably lose all revenue in Brazil and have to shut down our offices there. But principles matter more than profit. So that's interesting, right? That's an interesting move. And in Ireland, Ivor Cummings is sharing this very interesting short clip showing the collusion between the far-left NGO activists and the mainstream media. This clip was deleted from X because it identifies people without their permission, but here's the carefully redacted version, thus complying with X's rules. So here's what happened, and I'll just let Ivor explain it. But some Antifa tried to beat up some Irish lads, and they found out, and then they dropped their phone. And turns out they're colluding with a whole bunch of NGOs. So that's the short version. Here's Ivor to explain it further. I hope the accent isn't a problem. Oh, I thought this was the beginning.
State and the media and their far left minions been working together to sell the public the story of the big bad far right. Today at the Kulak Says No protest site, some agitators turned up. Get out of here. They got dealt with very quick, and that's good to see. But the biggest news coming from this is one of them dropped their phone.
Dirty bastards. Look at them.
Yes, that's video of them preparing beforehand in a hotel room. But let's keep watching.
This is the far left. That looks like a hotel room, doesn't it? Probably an NGO. That looks like a hotel room, doesn't it? Yeah, that is a hotel room.
That looked awfully like journalist Paul Connolly, didn't it? A very interesting call list on the phone also. Ross, News Talk. Aisling Moore, News Talk. Dr. Fake Attack Sheikh Umar Al-Qadri. The driving licence of one of the foreigners brought in for the agitation. The messages, organising everything. Ireland Against Fascism from Cork. Outgoing call today at 14:54. I don't see an issue unless things get hairy at the city centre one, and they are potentially in more danger in Coolock than they were in the city centre. or if a crowd were to follow them from city centre, for example, but I assume that is unlikely. They can only call that in the moment. There was meant to be a protest in Dublin today, but it was called off because they forecasted bad weather. So the traitors were planning to agitate and cause havoc in Dublin today, so they could get their stories and headlines for the Sunday papers about the big bad far right and protect the Ireland for all narrative. But it backfired, and it always will. Let's see them feature this. The truth always comes out in the end, eh? And before I finish, it's important to say, bit by bit and one by one, you're all going to pay for your crimes against the Irish people.
I hope so. I hope so. So there you go. I don't know if that was Ivor. Yeah, it's Ivor coming. So he's the Irish Git. Okay, we're Fat Emperor. This guy says follow the Irish Git. So I guess that was the Irish Git. So same tactics, except they're bringing in foreigners. Uber Boyo says Antifa thugs attacked a protest in Dublin today that was peaceful and full of concerned mothers. Young Irish lads roughed them up to get rid of them. Lads found identifying info on the thugs showing they were foreigners who were in close contact with the Irish media. So it was coordinated, it was planned, plotted in order, as the Irish Git said, to get headlines for the Sunday paper. So, and that's exactly what they were trying to do. And pretty wild stuff, same tactics, right? Communists. NEM says, I know this is far-fetched, but imagine if 1 million Irish upped sticks and went to Lagos to live. Imagine they were given everything for free gaff, free education, healthcare, etc. The locals were told that these people coming in were victims and should be given priority in every aspect. NGOs must be set up to pander to them and to keep them in their victimhood. Studies and research must be carried out to prove that they're being discriminated against everywhere they go, all paid for with the poor natives' taxes. But the reality is the replacements are swaggering about the place, taking the piss out of and giving the two fingers to the natives. The government is fawning all over them, giving them citizenship. They don't even need a real name, and big fancy jobs with fake qualifications in government and universities to tell the natives how racist they are and that the upper end of the state-run institutions are not white enough. In addition to that, if the natives complain, they'll be called racist. In fact, the government is trying to pass a law so nobody can complain or voice concern over their replacement, which will result in Indigenous going to jail. Outrageous, isn't it? Yes, this is exactly what's happening in Ireland. Yep. So it's happening everywhere, actually. That's exactly what's going on. Here's Karmaya Syed, and she says, the communists are here to claim the streets. So they're protesting in the streets. They're open, and they're definitely very aggressive. Here we go. Let's turn this down. So it's interesting that the police don't have much interest in these guys, but if they were protesting the tax, there'd be, I don't know, probably dozens of officers there, maybe horses, right? If they were opening a barbecue, oh my gosh, right? You got to shut that thing down, man. Don't you know people might get COVID? Pretty wild stuff. Here's a guy with a fake suicide vest in Toronto for All Cuds Day. So I think the communists were a different protest than the All Cuds, but maybe they all joined together. So all of this is happening in Canada, and it's meant to destabilize our society, I think. Dan McTeague is responding to Tim, and there's back and forth here talking about Wiretap Media's video I showed you yesterday, or I showed part of yesterday, saying, remember, the government created a group of bureaucrats that had access to Canadian intelligence to warn the public about foreign interference in our elections, but when they were given the intelligence, they didn't actually do that. We'll talk about China in a minute. But this is, I think, broader than just China. Dan McTeague, gas price wizard, says, insufferable liars, a new government must have these deceivers subject to scrutiny and accountability for misleading and breach of trust and accountability. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's laws against what they're doing. I'm pretty sure they're not allowed to do what they're doing. So it's weird that I'm so skeptical we're going to have any kind of accountability at all. Tim says, are there any remedies beside waiting for an election or options I can't mention but aren't without historical precedent in other countries? Something in between, like jail perhaps? And Dan responds, compiling a list of who were derelict in their duties, grifted, or were involved in breaches of security should be enough to keep a new government in waiting very busy. advanced work will make sure the time before the election is time well spent so that swift action can be taken. So he's saying if the conservatives are smart, they'll be building a list of the government officials and other people who were, legally corrupt or whatever it is. And so swift action can be taken when they take over government. I don't know that that's going to happen, right? And historically, the conservatives haven't done that to the liberals because they're worried that the liberals are going to do that to conservatives when they take power, right? And so it's kind of a tit for tat, like we're not going to do this to you if you don't do this to us. And everybody's kind of played ball with that for a while. So we'll see. I doubt. Honestly, I'm very skeptical. If anybody goes to jail that's actually an MP, I'll be shit shocked. And if a cabinet minister goes to jail, I'll eat my hat. Like, no, I don't see it. We had one bureaucrat go to jail for deleting emails for a couple of years, but it wasn't any ministers. It wasn't Dalton McGuinty or anything like that in Ontario. It was a bureaucrat, right? It was an unelected person. So a scapegoat, right? And like, it wasn't like the unelected person was like, you know what? I got to really delete those emails of all of these people about the gas plant scandal, right? There was more to it than that, but he was. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful